What's up in War Eagle, everybody? It's your man Ike Jones here. We are back to War Rapport, building rapport. I have with me today, listen, we know there is a history between the program that resides up in Oregon and this program here in Alabama, dating back a little while. We've faced a couple of times already, but for some reason, we've got this synergy going on right now in the transfer portal. And here to talk with us about all things concerning some of the guys that we've got coming in from Oregon is Spencer McLaughlin. He is the host of Locked On Ducks, and he is here today to step in, building rapport style. Let's get straight to it. Spencer, I appreciate you coming in to talk with me a little bit here. Let's just start first and foremost with the obvious. We have the national championship, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got game one, 2019 that we played?
2019, yep, 2019 regular season.
Yeah, that we have that. So that's just recent history between the two programs. But for whatever reason, fate has circled back around, and now we have what seems like just a NFL style trade that has happened between Auburn University and the University of Oregon football programs. Bo Nix decides to transfer from Auburn, and then a mass exodus. I won't call it mass. There's three players decide they're going to leave from Oregon and come to Auburn. What are you guys' thoughts about all of this activity that's been happening?
Well, it's right in line with what's been happening this offseason in college football with the one-time transfer rule, right? There's a big increase. And, I had a thought a couple weeks ago just in my mind randomly, and my mind is a very, very strange place if you get to know me. But one thing that came through there was, well, guys have always transferred. Is this really that different? We've had the transfer portal for, many, many years. Is it really that different? And then I saw a stat that, a year ago at this time, there were like over 1,200 players in the portal, and now there's over 2,000. So
Right.
When you're increasing by about 80%, that is a significant number of new guys that are changing schools. And some of the guys that have left Oregon were a little surprising, and some of the guys so far have not been. Going to the ones that haven't gone to Auburn, Travis Dye, I think that caught Oregon fans, myself included, off guard a little bit. But the guys that are going to Auburn, two did not surprise me. One, I'm not going to say shocked me, but I also wasn't anticipating it.
Right.
And I'm sure you want to talk about those guys, and we'll certainly get to it. But
Right.
it is really weird. Like, three guys go from Eugene down to Auburn, and then you guys send us Bo Nix.
Right.
I don't think there's any other school right now or any other two schools that have anything quite like that.
If there is, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
I haven't seen it either. And I mean, there have been so many guys in the portal, you'd think it would have happened, but Oregon got a transfer from Washington. We didn't send anybody up to, well, it's not a direct trade, of course, but
Right.
we didn't send anybody.
It just
up
feels
to
like it, though, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like it was just a soul stone exchange of some sort? I don't know.
I think it's just by chance. I think that at the end of the day, it is by chance. I don't think there's anything going on between the athletic administrations about like, oh yeah, this guy's going to leave. Well, if he goes here, is this guy going to come? No, I think it just happens to be this way, and that's why I'm on the show. Great to be here with you, Ike. And it's it's all too fitting, right? I host a show about the Ducks. You host a show about the Tigers, and we've got this connection right now.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. It's a good way to get and have some good college football conversation even during the off season. So let's get into it. First and foremost, I guess we'll talk about the first domino. Well, actually, it's not the first one. Would have been Bo Nix. We'll circle back around to that one at the end. But let's start and talk about Jason Jones. Right, so he hits the transfer portal, defensive lineman from Oregon. What did Auburn get in Jason Jones from your perspective?
Well, Jones was a guy who was a pretty solidly rated 4-star coming out of high school. And Oregon, Auburn fans may briefly remember from that game in 2019, had a guy on the defensive line, the Ducks did, by the name of Jordan Scott. And he had been an anchor on that D line. They called him Mini Fridge because he's just a huge 330-pound guy, but he was a run stuffer. And when he, was playing his final year of college football, most of us as Duck fans were looking around and saying, okay, this is going to be a clear hole, right? And who's
Right.
going to fill that void? Every defense needs a guy who can just, swallow up a double team, be tough to move, even by two guys on the other side. And we thought Jason Jones could be one of those guys. He wasn't, a surefire to be in that spot, but we thought he'd be at least in contention for it. And
Right.
it just never panned out. And I don't think that should make Auburn fans feel bad about, like, oh, so are we getting this guy who wasn't good enough to see the field? Is it possible? Sure, because he didn't see the field hardly at all at Oregon. But sometimes, especially with young kids, and I think it's easy to forget that these are kids. Like, think
Right.
about, any of you watching or listening to this, think about what you were like when you were 18, 19 years old.
Right.
It was completely different. I'm not very old, but I'm a lot different than I was when I was 18 or 19 in a number of ways. So he might just need the right situation to click. Maybe that's scheme. Maybe that's environment. Maybe, he wasn't able to find a social circle that was supporting him in the best way. I don't have that sourced. I'm just, throwing things out there. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know what the case was, but for whatever reason, he never popped and didn't reach his full potential. And the irony is that the guy Oregon got from Washington, Sam, they call him Taki Taimani, he is sort of in the same boat. Like, he was a pretty highly rated 4-star, and he just never quite clicked. So he wants a new environment, and sometimes that's all guys need. And Jones, he's got the physical traits. He's a
Right.
big body dude, and you watch his high school film, he's physical and powerful, but he's got to be able to find the right scheme fit and, mesh with the guys on the defensive line. If he can, I think he can still develop into a solid college football player in between the tackles.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is one thing that I have to caution everybody about, whether it's excitement or getting down on transfer situations. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have someone who was an entrenched starter at their program transfer in. Again, we'll talk about Bo Nix in just a moment. So you're going to be getting someone's, second, third string person that's coming in looking for an opportunity, like you said, a reset. So there's not going to be a ton of things to evaluate them on as far as their performance on the field, unless it's a grad transfer from, a lower school in, like, a group of 5 trying to get up to a power 5 or something like that. You're just not going to have a ton of film to be able to evaluate, or a JUCO transfer or something like that. But if it's a power 5 school to another power 5 school, it's going to be a second or third, string person that you're getting in. So you kind of have to hope that that change of scenery is what that player needed, with that additional year of maturity, to be able to transfer that over to the field and get results. So we'll definitely see what happens with Jason Jones in that regard. Let's move on now to the second player that came over to Auburn, and that is DJ James, defensive back. Played there in Oregon, got a little bit more playing time than Jason Jones, the one we mentioned just before. What are the thoughts coming from Eugene in regard to that transfer in the defensive backfield?
Yeah, that was a guy that Oregon fans were a little caught off guard by when he put his name into the portal. It was a little less surprising when you just considered that anytime you undergo a coaching change in college football, some guys are going to leave the program, right? I think that's part of the reason Travis Dye is not going to stay for his 5th year with the Ducks is, you committed to play for certain coaches, and that's who you wanted to play for. And when they go somewhere else, maybe that's not the place you want to go. Travis Dye obviously didn't want to go down to Miami, or maybe there was no mutual interest over there, whatever the case may be. But DJ James was a regular player in the Oregon secondary for the last couple of years, and he is a solid cornerback. I don't think he's going to blow you away and develop into, a first team all SEC guy, or even a second team guy. I think his ceiling is probably in the honorable mention category, but he is capable of making plays. He had the game sealing interception against UCLA for the Ducks earlier in the 2021 season, in what was a pretty big game, and Oregon just desperately tried to give that game away, and then we're somehow able to salvage it thanks to DJ James. And he's a guy who's played the most of the 3 players that Oregon is sending down to Auburn. He has been, not on the field for every single defensive snap. He was mostly one of the top 2 corners over the last couple of years with Mikael Wright, who is an NFL-bound guy for the Ducks. Mikael Wright was on one side, and then the other outside corner, that is a little bit of a revolving door. But I think when I watch DJ James, what I see is a guy who is capable in pass coverage, and more than capable and willing as well to come up and play against the run. I think that he's most effective I'm not a DC, of course, defensive coordinator, but if I
Mhm.
were, I would play him as a boundary corner. I think he's exceptional. You very rarely saw him get beat to the outside, and he was
Mm.
really good defending those sorts of routes. But I don't know if he quite has the speed and get off to be able to consistently defend, huge swaths of the field. He didn't get beat a ton, but there were a couple moments where he was susceptible to getting beat over the top. He is a starting caliber corner, no doubt, but he is a guy who, is going to come into your defense, and if corner is a weakness, he can solidify at least one of those slots. And you can know that, he may not be our best player on defense, but he's definitely not going to be our worst. He's going to be a capable player who will make plays from time to time. And, beating him to the outside without outside breaking routes, the way that he positions himself and uses his hips makes that kind of difficult, but it does leave him a little bit more open at times on, slant routes and crossing patterns and such. That's where he got exposed the most. But overall, a solid college cornerback.
Yeah, and listen, that's really all you can hope for when you're getting a transfer player in, is that they fill in admirably until you can either groom someone else to be their replacement, or they can be the solid starter for the entirety of the season that helps you to have stability in whatever position group it's in. So I think that there's definitely some optimism about DJ James and his ability to either be the starting corner for Auburn or be a solid backup, or dime package, nickel, whatever it can be, to come in and contribute immediately for the team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that he's definitely, as I said, more suited to be an outside corner. I wouldn't, put him in there as a nickel guy per se. It's just not where I think his strengths are. But
Right.
if DJ James becomes your backup corner, if he doesn't get into the top two for your outside DBs, Auburn fans should feel great about where their secondary is at, because
Oh,
he is, as I said, a starting caliber corner. And if you can find two guys who you can say on a daily basis are better than him on the outside day in and day out, that is a really good sign for Tigers fans down there, because he's a more than capable player.
awesome. Well, that's definitely good to hear. The spring has just gotten so interesting here at Auburn. I'm looking forward to seeing how some of these position battles develop as we get over into the spring, and definitely looking forward to the spring game. All right. So that's two of the three. I think the third one, you guys had to see it coming, right? Like the
Yeah.
quarterback room, just there was no way you were going to retain
Hmm.
all of the young talent that Oregon has in that quarterback room. But the third one being Robbie Ashford, who hasn't seen very much of the field at all. I mean, I think the only film I was able to find on Robbie Ashford came from the Oregon spring game.
That's right.
So, tell us a little bit about what the sentiment was around the program with Robbie Ashford and his potential development, and just seeing him exit the program, how the feelings are around that.
Well, first of all, I just want to shout out his mom, because she's awesome. She came in Twitter Spaces a few times and would talk to Duck fans and answer people's questions, and she just seems like an absolutely awesome lady, and that is generally reflective of how people's kids are. Right, is when the parents are good people, that tends to reflect well on their kids. And from everything I've read, that's very true with Robbie Ashford. He's a talented guy, but you were right, Ike. We knew that one of them was going to leave. Right, when
Right.
Bo Nix came in, I came on the show the next day and said, like, we all understand, Duck fans, right, that this is going to happen. One of these guys is going to leave, because they're all in the same class. So
Right.
it's not like any of them could wait for the other guys. It's just not feasible. And the other guys in that room are talented prospects as well. Ty Thompson was a 5-star. Jay Butterfield was a 4-star recruit. And then you bring in Bo Nix. And when you have that in your quarterback room, you just can't expect all those guys to stick around. And
Right.
I want to see what Ashford could do. Yeah, at some point, but we don't harbor any ill will at all for him going down and leaving Oregon, because no one wants to sit on the bench forever. And it just seemed like it was an appropriate thing to do. I actually thought, though, of the three, I thought Butterfield would be most likely to leave, because Ashford is actually a baseball player too.
Hmm.
And he plays on, or has played on, the Oregon baseball team. He's an outfielder. And when you watch his tape in high school and see him run, you see that I don't know exactly how I can describe it, but sometimes when you see guys run, you can tell, oh, he plays this sport.
Right.
Like when you watch Russell and Kyler in the NFL, you're like, oh, they're
Right.
baseball players.
Yep.
Just the way they run and they know how to slide and such. And Robbie Ashford definitely has that. I mean, he physically has the tools to be a high level college quarterback. He's got good arm strength, he's got good size, and he's got great speed. So what's missing there is, number one, an opportunity, and number two, the ability to develop into a college quarterback. Because as
Right.
we all know, you have to continuously get better at that position in particular, and it's hard. And whether or not he's able to do that, I have no inclination, because I've literally never seen him play
Right.
aside from the spring game, as you mentioned. So when you get a guy like that, it's up to your staff. Is your offensive staff good enough to get the most out of him and develop him into the sort of player he's capable of becoming? Because I think he can be a good college quarterback, but whether or not he can sort out the intangibles and learn an offense effectively and execute it still remains to be seen. And I don't think the fact that he didn't play at Oregon is demonstrative of all that he can't do that, because they
Right.
brought in a guy in Anthony Brown who had played college football for 3 or 4 years, and they were committed to him as the starting quarterback, no matter how much Oregon fans might have clamored for Ty Thompson throughout the season. At certain moments when Brown was struggling, which he did at times, he had some good moments as well, but he
Mhm.
had some moments that were tough to watch at times. So I think that Ashford is a guy who is just a little bit of an enigma, and sometimes that's okay, because it could be a diamond in the rough, or it could
Right.
be, maybe he doesn't get playing time at Auburn, ends up going to a smaller school where he would be able to play. There's no telling how it's going to play out. It'll just be up to Brian Harsin and that offensive staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking forward to again some very intriguing battles in the spring coming up. Quarterback position is not exempt from that conversation. We've got a lot of things happening here. So let's transition now to the other side of that coin. Really, the first piece of this entire a quasi trade scenario that you've
Yeah,
got going on between the two
the
schools.
first domino.
Yeah, the first domino to fall was the transfer of 3-year starting quarterback Bo Nix from Auburn to Oregon. And just talk to me a little bit about the perception around the program. I know, I was kind of fly on the wall, sitting in a few spaces that I saw when it initially happened. So I was in there just kind of listening and trying to get a feel and the vibe for how people were receiving this. And a lot of it was this, I won't say trepidation, but this definitely a concern that some of the younger talent in the quarterback room was not going to stick around. Talk to me a little bit about kind of what the perception is around the quarterback position as we approach the unknown with now Oregon Duck Bo Nix.
Yeah, so the one guy that Duck fans wanted to keep around is Ty Thompson, and he tweeted not long after Bo Nix committed to Oregon, 10 toes down, saying
Hmm,
I'm staying planted, I'm here, I'm a Duck, and he wants to compete for the starting quarterback job. And
that's awesome.
though I anticipate Bo Nix will be the starter when the Ducks go down to Atlanta and play Dan Lanning's former school in Georgia, which is a rude awakening to being a head coach in
Yeah,
college football. But
it's going to be an
Chip,
interesting game one for sure.
yeah, it is. But Chip Kelly got whacked in his first game as a head coach, and that worked out all right. So
Yeah,
we'll just see how that all plays out, because Georgia, of course, is going to be pretty good. Though they have a lot of guys leaving, a lot of guys in the portal, so I don't think it's going to be quite the same Georgia team. It'll be a winnable game, but Ty Thompson is the guy that when he was recruited and we got a 5-star quarterback commit, everyone in Oregon land got excited immediately. And how can you not? Because, the great quarterbacks Oregon's had over the years, the Marcus Mariotas and Justin Herberts of the world, those were 3-star recruits.
hmm,
And Vernon Adams, who was really good for a year, unfortunately hurt his finger, still ended up having a good season with the Ducks. He was an FCS transfer from Eastern Washington. And so there haven't been these big heralded quarterback recruits. So when we finally got one, everyone in the Oregon fandom wanted to see him, and they still want to see him. And there are a lot
right,
of people I know, and I've talked to some of them who are, upset that Bo Nix came in because they want to see Ty Thompson. They want him to be the starter and for him to look like a 5-star quarterback and play like a 5-star quarterback. And, what I would tell those fans is Bo Nix was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. And
Absolutely.
you don't know, just because a guy has a lot of stars, that means that physically the potential is there, or there are other components of his game that would lead you to believe he could be a high caliber player. But at the end of the day, everything's got to click. I mean, it's what we were talking about with Jason Jones, and
Mm-hmm.
what Auburn fans know with Lee Hunter, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 5-star defensive tackle who left. You never know. And at the end of the day, what Oregon fans want is to win football games. And whether
Right.
that comes from Ty Thompson starting or Bo Nix starting, I don't really care. I want them to compete it out.
Right.
Dan Lanning has been very clear about that. He said, look, this is an open competition, every position. Quarterback is no different. He has said that in multiple interviews. I mean, he's sticking by his guns to that. It's going to be an awesome spring game because every Oregon fan that cares about football at all is going to be watching and being like, okay, so here's Bo Nix. We kind of know what he is, but what does he look like at Oregon? And what does Ty Thompson look like? Where's he at in his development? And I don't think it's a for sure thing that Nix will be the starter, but there's there's already polarization within the Oregon fan base on Bo Nix, which is going to be no surprise to Auburn fans, I'm sure, because my understanding is he was a pretty polarizing player there. Part of that is that, his dad was a quarterback and he was a big recruit, and he, was a capable quarterback. But I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ike, he never lived up to the 5-star billing that he had when he got to Auburn.
No, I think that's completely fair to say. I think, there were Heisman aspirations for Bo Nix when he came in, based upon, like you said, him being a 5-star athlete and, having such an electric start to his, freshman campaign again, unfortunately at the unfortunately you all were on the losing end of that one.
Right
But
there.
yeah, but still, I think starting his career in that way with all of the hype coming into it, it definitely resulted in a lot of people feeling as if, okay, we've got a meteoric star here, and the rise just never fully actualized. It was a lot of mixed results when it came to Bo Nix's career at Auburn for a variety of reasons that we don't have enough time to get into.
Yeah, we could go for a long while on that. But
Yeah.
if he, at the end of the day, for Oregon fans, if Bo Nix becomes the starter, obviously we're going to root for him to win. And if
Mhm.
he performs, then Oregon fans will get behind him. But
Right.
it's all on him. And
For sure.
after the Anthony Brown inconsistencies of this past season, if Bo Nix, who has been susceptible to a number of the flaws that Anthony Brown had this past year as a quarterback, I think Bo Nix is better overall. But if he starts to commit those same sort of mistakes, the questionable throws, inaccurate stretches, and it starts to feel like, to Duck fans, here we go again
Right.
with uncertainty and inconsistency at the quarterback position for a program that has had a high level of quarterback play over the last 15 years. Duck fans will get frustrated with him real quick. So it's all on Bo's shoulders to win over the Duck fan support.
Yeah. Now, listen. I am on record as saying on our show that I feel like Bo Nix was making the climb this season to look more like the 5-star athlete that people anticipated him being. As he unfortunately got hurt towards the end of that season, it looked like he was starting to put it together. So I think that there are things that Duck fans can be excited about with Bo Nix. If you watched his progress over the last year under Brian Harsin and that offensive staff, if he can continue to make those types of strides and he returns from the injury and still has the athletic ability and the burst that he could show to escape the pocket and make plays with his legs, you guys are going to have a phenomenal athlete on your hands at quarterback. So definitely looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Well, listen, that's all we really wanted to talk about today. We wanted to take some time to talk about this, again, unprecedented, it seems, transfer of talent between these two programs.
It's just weird.
It's something that I don't know that you'll see again, but hey, listen, that's the world that we live in now with the transfer portal. But hopefully it will be something that will end up being positive for college football as a whole. Again, that's something that we could have a whole other conversation about.
Yep.
And maybe we'll circle back to have some sort of portal conversation at some point in the future as we start to see this play out over the next couple of years. At any rate, give us an opportunity to know where we can check you out if people want to keep up with, listen, there are a lot of people who still love Bo Nix, and maybe they'll want to be able to tune in and see how things are going with their former favorite college football player. How can people keep up with you and the program over there at Locked On Auburn? Locked On Oregon.
Yeah, it's Locked On Ducks is the podcast. You can go at Locked On Ducks on Twitter, or that right there. I'm not a weatherman, clearly. That is my personal Twitter handle. It's Smalls_55, and Locked On Ducks is available and free on all podcasting platforms. And I can assure you, if you're wanting to keep up with Bo Nix, this will be the podcast to do it, because there will never be a shortage of Bo Nix discussion, for better or worse, going forward as he plays out his final 2 years of eligibility in college football. And it'll all start with the spring game coming up in, I think just a handful of weeks. Those are usually in March, sometime March, April.
I know ours is in April. Yeah. So
yeah.
It's probably
I think it's after college basketball season. So,
yeah.
Come April, there will be plenty of Bo Nix discussion on the pod, and I'll, probably be at the point where I'm just breaking down every single one of his throws. Like, oh, he missed this read here, but he made that one, and that throw was good, and maybe this shows this, or who knows what. But
right.
If you want to keep up with the Ducks and or Bo Nix, just subscribe to Locked On Ducks wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Well, Spencer, I appreciate you taking a little time to talk with us.
My pleasure.
And we will definitely get back and talk some more, maybe just get into some more things after this season and see how you guys thought about Bo Nix's first full year. Well, I guess it would be he's got another year of eligibility. He could stick around.
He's got 2 more, because 2020 doesn't count.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes for you all going forward with that.
Fingers crossed. I appreciate it, Ike. Great to be on.
All right. Well, that is it for another great Building Rapport segment. You all know what to do. You need to be hitting that subscribe button if you want great content like that. Make sure you like the video as well, man. Listen, show a little love while you're here. But we will definitely be back at you all with some more great content. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle and the War Report out.